everybody here.
Welcome to episode 4.5 of the 6gc.net podcast. I'm your host, Manny, aka Pressure 2, and this is my co-host,
Dustin, aka Batman722 on 6GC. And we're going to talk a little bit about some things tonight. We're going to talk about some meets. We're going to have a special guest with us tonight. And let's get this started.
All right. Dustin, you know, we've been having car meets for years. Since 2004 was our first 6GC meet. We had 4 guys.
Almost 10 years now.
Yeah, it's been a long time, man. Really, when you say 10 years, dude, it's been a long time.
We've had some great meets.
We really have.
Colt State
really
Park
have.
in Mass, Rhode Island, Colt State Park out of Bristol. And we've had some gigantic meets where 20-something 6GCs are there, you know?
Yeah.
So like
yeah, we had like 70 cars or some shit like that.
Yeah, we had MR2s, some Camrys, some Scions,
Camrys,
all tracks
all
in there.
kinds. All kinds of Toyotas, basically.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I would suggest is, you know, if you have other Toyotas, you can invite some of the other Toyota guys out.
Yeah, get the other guys.
It
Make it like
fun.
a multi-car meet. If it's just a 6GC meet, most likely you have like 5 cars there. And that's not that fun. You get like 10, 15 different people. You get personalities. You get to know people. It's a great time. The MR2 guys love to show off their cars. They usually do a lot of stuff with their cars. Good people. You know, get them out there. Coordinate with other websites like the Scion guys.
Yep.
We had one meet where there was more Scions than fucking, actual Toyotas.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it was nuts, dude. Not that they took over the meet, but they organized. They were
Definitely.
good.
Yeah, it's fun, man. You can have a lot of fun doing that stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in a special guest. His name is Daniel Ritchie, a.k.a. Richie3 on 6GC.
Yep.
He's one of the more active members nowadays, Dustin. You know,
Yeah, he is.
We as kind of OGs don't spend as much time posting on the boards, but guys like Richie are on that website and post actively.
The site.
They're there every day.
The guys, they carry
Those
the
are the
site.
guys that make the website continue to grow and continue to be active. So we'd like to bring him in right now. Daniel, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Pretty
Great.
good. It's good to have you. Thank you for coming on with us tonight. How's Bridget doing?
Oh, she's doing pretty well. She's about half asleep right next to me right now.
Oh, that's fan. So cute.
That's funny. So, Daniel, one thing I'd like to mention off the top is I know you met Dustin and Steph in person. They're great people. They told me a little bit about you. And one of the things that they told me is that your wife actually owns the car and you kind of do the work on it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's actually how we met. I sold the car a few years ago, and she found it on Craigslist. So
That's
we
awesome.
tell everybody that we met through Craigslist, and ever since then we've done all the goodies like Dustin's FC205 front end and a beam swap and everything else.
Cool. That's great, man.
That's awesome.
And it's funny because I'm kind of in the same boat here. My wife actually owns the Celica and actually bought the Celica, and she's the one who drives it most of the time. But I, do all the work with the help of Dustin and my friends and my family. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about car meets, buddy. Have you been to a lot of car meets? First off, what year is your Celica? What is it? A GTST? What have you done to it? Tell me a little bit about it, man.
It started out in life as a 1998 GT 5-speed.
Yep.
We bought the JDM SS3 beam swap for it, and then we bought Dustin's FC205 front end, and ever since then we've just been doing little things to it.
Oh, shit. So how do you like the beams? How long have you had it, and how do you like it?
We've had the beams almost 2 years now. Whenever we first swapped it in, it was only running on 3 cylinders, and it was already killing my 5S.
Ugh.
Then we took a trip out to Rhode Island to meet you, Dustin, and we got a chance to take a ride in your beams, and we felt the difference that a lightweight flywheel and new exhaust can make on the beams. And ever since then, we've pretty much been set up on that car, and it's really a fun ride now. It screams in the top end.
Awesome.
Yeah, it does. It's like I can't say enough. A good exhaust on the beams opens it up like crazy. It's nothing like a 5S where
Factory
you
exhaust
think
is
it
very
might,
restrictive.
Oh my God, you get a good exhaust on the beams, you feel it. And it's not just a butt dyno, you can feel it.
That's the GE head, man. That's the GE head.
High flowing GE head.
It's a good, beautiful thing.
So
Go ahead, Dustin. Go ahead.
All right, so there's like a lot of debate in the board before we get into it. There's a lot of debate in the board about a beams and a V6 swap. We've all driven V6s, not in a Celica, but we've all driven V6s, and we've all driven beams. How do you feel about it? Would you rather have done a V6 swap, a beams? What are your feelings about that?
I have to say, on the V6 versus the beam swap, the beams is much more drop-in. It's very easy to do, but it's very costly to get 200 horsepower.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
You know, my other car's a Nissan 350Z, big 3.5-liter V6 engine. Driving that car compared to the beams, they're totally different engines. The Z brings on the torque real early, real low.
Yep.
But the beams is a much more lively engine, much more rev happy. It makes the 350Z seem lazy in comparison.
No shit.
I love that
So I
word,
think
rev
I'm
happy.
on a V6 swap in a Celica, but I know I'd like to meet up with Kurt 95
That's a great way
and
to
take a ride
describe
in his 1MZ once he gets it up and running.
You know, we actually had him on last week. He had some good things to say about you, which I agree. And
Yeah, and he actually pointed out some good things that I'd like to reinforce about the differences between the V6 and the beams. When
Yep.
you do a beam swap, everything just drops in, like Richie said. It all kind of just falls into place. When you're doing a V6 swap, that's definitely going to take a little bit more custom fabrication as far as mounts and exhaust and things like that. Not stuff that's not overcomable. It's easily done,
Yeah.
but it's going to take a
Yeah,
little bit more work. Things like the power steering,
the
stuff like that.
wiring is obviously going to be a little bit more of a hassle unless you send it out. You did your own wiring, is that right? On the beam
Yeah,
swap?
I've actually done 2 wiring harnesses now. Since
Cool.
I've bought multiple beams red top engines, I had one automatic transmission wiring harness that I just used some butt crimps and cut a new hole in the firewall and got it running that way. Then whenever I bought my second beams red top, I actually properly extended that harness, soldered, all that good stuff, and it's really not that hard. It's a little bit time consuming, but I would suggest to anybody willing to do a beams red top swap to take a few hours and extend the harness properly.
Wow, so you're Mr. Fancy Pants doing a bunch of wire harnesses on it?
Yeah, see, I kind of did the half-ass job. When I did my 3rd gen swap, I kind of half did it. I kind of relocated the part of the harness that goes in the driver's corner of the engine bay and set everything up so it all kind of plugs in like OEM, but I didn't extend the firewall over to the across the firewall and into the stock boot. I cut the hole like a cheap guy.
Yeah.
So I did a half and half deal. But yeah, I mean, it's debatable either way. I can definitely feel you as far as if you want that OEM look, extending the harness. It definitely is worth the extra effort to make it happen.
Right. And now I'm left over with an extra hole in my firewall I wish I didn't have, but it was a very easy thing to do. There are guides on 60C Dust, and I think it was actually your ST205 swap thread. I was able to reference your thread and figure out where to cut the hole in my firewall.
And that's what I did on my 205, on Steph's 205,
Yeah, and
on
mine
our
as well.
beams, and Manny's too.
Yeah.
It's the easy way. It's like, me personally, I didn't want to cut into the 205 harness just for like this. Not that I was scared, but it was something that I didn't want to mess up the OEM goodness of it. I didn't want to have one wire not quite make the connection like it should, and then I'm searching for a problem, down the road.
When I did mine, I took mine's the next step, but didn't go all the way. I wanted to kind of, when you do a 205 swap, you kind of get that extra loop in the harness. If you don't extend any of the wiring and you kind of feed it through the middle, you end up with an extra piece of the harness, and it don't quite fit exactly like OEM. There's some extra wiring, so I kind of cut that stuff out, but I didn't want to extend it all the way because I ended up saying, you know what, I had enough. But either way, I mean, it works. What I did was when I did drill a hole, I actually welded a couple of studs into the firewall so that I could put the stock boot in place and bolt it on.
Yeah, there's pictures in that in Manny's thread.
Exactly,
205
yeah.
swap thread.
My 205 swap thread has that pictured as well, just for future reference for you guys out there. But when you did your beam swap, you mentioned you bought two engines. Did you have a problem with your first engine or something?
The first one, I actually a Beams gray top from a Toyota Calvina.
Okay.
And I was unaware at the time. I got that motor for a great price for $1,400 shipped, and I was unaware that the wiring harness was actually different from the Celicas. So I found a red top for about $100 with no transmission and no ECU. So I picked that motor up thinking I'd just steal the wiring harness from it. It turned out to be just absolutely perfectly clean inside and out. So we went with that in Bridget Celica, and then I bought a third red top, or a third beams rather, because I was having some problems with my ECU that I had picked up from Vincent Doggy. Whenever the ECU went through customs, they kind of messed it up a little bit, so I was getting some bad bogging and misfiring around 3,000 RPM.
Huh.
Yeah, I remember that.
So I dropped my newest beams in, and it had bad rings. I had some really bad luck with that swap.
Huh. No kidding.
So after 3 beams engines and pulling the motor like 3 or 4 times, everything's running good now, right?
Yeah, I've now been driving it for 45 to 50,000 miles, and it's been absolutely perfect every mile of the way.
Awesome.
What do you like best about it?
Well, you know, I gotta say, the power. I mean, that's the reason we all do the swaps, but I love how stock it feels. I love how it cruises around town just like a 5S, but whenever you want to open it up, you just drop a couple of gears and that thing will scream to redline. And I feel like whenever the beams hits redline, it's still got plenty of power and plenty of revs left to go.
Yeah, that's the advantage of the GE head versus the FE head.
Because those are high lift cams in the beams head, that GE head.
Yeah.
Which makes it
Yeah,
an interference
GE head,
motor.
it's a much more advanced, better flowing head. You know.
Much better.
It's made for performance. That's
So,
what
what kind of mods you got in your car? Tell me about the mods. And, you know, there's some big things happening to your car right now, huh?
Yeah, the shell itself actually has 238,000 miles on it.
Typical.
I feel kind of bad about that, but the body's still pretty cherry for the most part. I've been avoiding posting this in my progress thread, but since you guys asked, the car's actually at the body shop right now getting completely overhauled. It'll look totally different by the time it's done. You guys will have to wait on teaser pictures for that. Or
Awesome.
if you're friends with me on Facebook, you've already been watching some of the teaser pictures.
I've seen a teaser or two.
Yep. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
How does Bridget like the car? Does she hammer on that thing or what?
Yeah, it's really funny. I'm the one that actually wanted to do the motor swap. She just wanted to drive it with the 5S and leave it alone. But I was able to talk her into the beams engine for the naturally aspirated reliability of it. And after we got that motor in, she hammers the car, and I'm the one that puts around like an old man and sets the cruise control.
That's funny.
That's good. That's good. You know,
Drives the car like it was meant to be driven.
That's
awesome.
That's right. That's, you know, we should all kind of, you know, I'm not saying we should all hammer on the cars, but a beams engine,
That's what it's
even the
made
3S GTE,
It's made to yell.
it's made to scream. If you don't take it over 4,000 RPMs, you're kind of doing a disservice to the engine. That thing fucking screams, dude.
It's true.
You could feel it. It just goes. You know, it's faster and faster. It loves high revving. Loves the RPMs. It fucking loves it. It's so fucking fun to drive.
It's a great motor.
You just drop that thing in third.
It's so. It feels so perfect. How
Smooth.
stock it feels, and yet how happy it is to scream up to red line and take you above speeds you should ever be going.
Would you recommend
That's
a beam swap to anybody?
I would absolutely recommend a beam swap to anybody. It's a little bit of money for just 200 horsepower, but it drops right in. It makes the car feel just like it should have right out of the factory.
Yeah.
There's always that rumor floating around 6gc.net that parts are so hard to find, but I found that virtually everything on that motor is very, very easy to get in the United States.
And I gotta kind of agree with you on that.
Yeah, that's a misnomer. That's guys that you know what I found is a lot of the guys that tend to do that kind of the poo-pooing and talking about stuff are guys that don't have the experience, that don't know how to do the research or haven't done the research. For the guys that are in the know, that's a good tip to put out there, Daniel. And you know what? I appreciate you mentioning that because that's important.
If there's really something you can't get at a U.S. dealer, you can get it at Lithia Toyota.
Yeah, Lithia Toyota.
They have.
They're fantastic.
Yep.
Parts that's pretty good. Lithia actually carries a lot of beams parts in stock.
Yep.
They're actually pretty damn good.
That's
They're
where I
real
got
good.
all my 3S pots.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I have.
But a lot of things actually cross
to U.S.
things on
cars.
US cars.
Yeah, for example, like the thermostat. The thermostat for the beams, Does that for example,